So the Bank of Canada decided to leave the 5% interest rate where it is, and they said that the interest rate is doing the work that it's supposed to. However, more time is needed to bring the stubborn inflation down. Saying that, they also recognize that the supply has outgrown the demand, which they're happy about, and this is obviously an indicator that future inflation that's underlying will also ease. They also recognize that economy has stalled since mid-2023, and they recognize that one of the reasons is the higher interest rates, and hopefully by the mid of 2024, the economy should start to pick up again. They also noted that the supply chain is well under control at the moment. They also commented that the supply chain is well under control, and this has been a huge hurdle to bring down inflation. The economic growth has been stalled in Canada since mid-2023. They expect a rebound in 2025. They also recognize that the higher interest rate has been a huge hindrance in the growth of the economy. Further, they have said that their target rate or the end rate remains still 2%. Unfortunately, there are some things that they need to still work their course with. One of them being is shelter inflation, which is high, things like mortgages and rents, and the other one that they mentioned was food inflation, which is at 5%, and that's a big concern for them. They're expecting CPI inflation to remain at 3% for the first half of the year, then reduce at least by 2.5% by the end of this year, and then hopefully we'll hit the target next year sometimes. One of my favorite part in the press conference meeting was actually the questions that were asked by the reporters. Some great questions were asked, and let's see how Bank of Canada answered. One of the questions was, did anyone discuss cuts in the committee, and if so, when? To that, Bank of Canada simply replied, we're not even looking at cutting the interest rate right now. Right now, what we're focusing on is, hey, how long do we keep the 5% for? Further, they replied that if inflation is stubborn and will reignite, they will not be scared to push interest rate up further to tame the inflation. The other question was, if inflation is directly causing the shelter cost to go up, which is something that Bank of Canada is concerned about, then why not just bring the interest rate down? This was a fabulous question, and to that, Tiff Macklem, Bank of Canada governor, answered that yes, they do understand that shelter cost is partly being caused by higher interest rate. However, at the same time, they are concerned about the underlying inflation. And the underlying inflation, what he meant was that in the CPI basket, about 50% of the items are running 3% or higher, and that's of concern to him. Also, let's not forget the core inflation that's taken out shelter and energy prices, and the inflation is still hot from 3 to 4%, which is definitely a concern to him as well. The other question was, since Bank of Canada is watching the core inflation really closely, what would be a target for the core inflation? So core inflation is shelter and energy prices taken out of inflation, just to see, hey, what would be the target for Bank of Canada. To that, he replied that we don't have any specific target on the core inflation. It's not a matter of numbers for the core inflation, but it's an overall process. So they need to see not only shelter or food inflation come down, but they need to see the overall inflation, the overall underlying inflation work its way down to their target. One of the other questions was, what is your comment about some speculations outside in the market about rates coming down by springtime? To that, he replied, we're not even talking about rate cuts yet. We are focused on bringing the underlying inflation down. One of the last questions that I picked was actually one of my favorite ones. One of the reporters asked, we understand that last year when you announced a conditional pause, the housing market picked up fiercely. Is that something that you're concerned about? To that, the Deputy Governor, Carolyn Rogers, replied that, yes, if we do decide to decrease the rates, one of the threat would be the housing market actually picking up steam. So in a nutshell, guys, the Bank of Canada is not ready to cut anytime soon. At least that's what they're saying. What they're focused on is bringing down the underlying inflation further. He further said that right now the conversation has shifted from, hey, do we need higher interest rates to tame the inflation down, to, okay, we're at 5%. This seems like a very comfortable zone for the inflation. How long are we going to stay here? That's what the conversation is about. So he reiterated that, of course, there's no talk about cuts right now. There's no specific dates or anything like that. However, he did leave a clue saying that by the second half of this year, the economy will start to pick up. And obviously, I'm not an economist, obviously, but to stimulate an economy, you need to bring down the rates. So that could be a clue. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Right now, Bank of Canada is just waiting for more data to confirm that the underlying inflation has eased. Thank you for watching. My name is Ragu Rajaguru. I'm a real estate broker in the area of Durham region and surrounding. If you have any questions, if you're buying, selling, and you just want to know what's happening in the market overall, give me a call at 416-712-2006. Thank you.